3 years ago, the first John Wick film came out, and yeah, I gave it a burn it, pointing out that the entire revenge story was thrown into action over a puppy. And yet, everybody else defended John Wick going on a killing spree over a puppy. Meanwhile, I feel like Will Ferrell in Zoolander.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Yeah, like that. And yet a couple of days ago, I stumbled across this interview with director Chad Stahelski, and he's asked, what can people make fun of when it comes to John Wick 1? And we'll just watch his reply.
Just Jesus, pick one. He kills 84 guys over a puppy.
Apologies can be sent to youareright@hotmail.com. Hey! I'm kidding. I'm not that self-righteous, usually. And the fact is, maybe I'm the one who should apologize. Obviously, I'm a big man physically, but I'm big enough emotionally to also admit I was partially wrong. Partially. Simply because I really didn't figure out what they were trying to do with the first John Wick film. Was it self-satirical? Was it serious? Was it tongue-in-cheek? Or maybe it was exactly like I stated. The reason for vengeance doesn't really matter, and the filmmakers know it. But it did matter, because it changes the perception of the film. Now, having seen Chapter 2, I now understand that was a bit of a joke, but it's still their job as the director, the screenwriter, as the filmmakers themselves to convey that to the audience clearly. And I don't know if you noticed this giant collection of movies behind me, but I've seen a lot of films, and I'm usually pretty good at picking up that kind of thing. But that was the first John Wick. Here's Chapter 2. And guess what? The inciting incident, the cause for all this mayhem and vengeance, actually makes sense. Yes, in Chapter 2, Wick is pulled back in because of a blood oath he swore to get out of the game and retire. And now, that marker is being called in. It makes perfect sense because in the 2 John Wick films, there is a code of honor in this underworld of assassins that everybody must follow. And those rules have been established. There it is. Simple, effective, believable. And so off we go on this blood-fueled, headshot-filled man grunt of a story, and for lack of a better term, the violence is awesome. To no surprise though, because remember that Stahelski was a stunt coordinator before he was a director, and it shows in each one of this film's action sequences. My particular favorite scene involved a pencil, and putting Heath Ledger's Joker to shame. Most of the gunfights in Chapter 2 were like a video game the way they played out, but there is a downside to all that mindless violence. Downside to mindless violence? Downside? Yeah, that's what I wrote. In the first John Wick, I gave the gunfights for the win, because for the most part it was something I had never seen before, but in Chapter 2, that video game style violence became cyclical and repetitive. 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head, grapple, steal a gun, rinse and repeat. I mean, it was super redundant and repeated itself. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the stunts of this film, but without the stunts in a John Wick movie, what do you have to fall back on? I mean, the acting? Actually, the acting was pretty good. Ian McShane, for example, was easily the best thing about this film. He wasn't quite enough to get the for the win, but he was a lot of fun to watch. And in typical McShane fashion, he was charming, dangerous, and all wrapped up in that $1 million voice. And the newcomers to the franchise, were they worth $1 million? Almost. I'll give you a few $100,000 for Common, who played Cassian, a rival assassin to John and equal in almost any way. I'll give you the same for Mr. Lawrence Fishburne, who breathed some life into the third act of this film after it started to get a little stale and repetitive. But the stalest scent came off a rose. Man, I am a wordsmith. That segue was a work of art. Anyways, Ruby Rose. That's right. The Bieber-esque beauty who stole the minds, hearts, and libidos of men and women across the world all of a sudden is an action star. Resident Evil, Triple X, and John Wick all bang in a row. But there was no bang for this Rose. Okay, I'm out of segues. I'm not a wordsmith, I'll admit it. But the point is, her Ares was a character you don't even really know by name. She's a deaf assassin who clearly shows she learned sign language about a month before shooting. She doesn't even look remotely intimidating. She doesn't do anything cool other than stand there or point other henchmen to become headshot fodder. The worst part is, as expected, she and Wick face off. And if the filmmakers believed that a 90-pound Australian chick could pose any kind of threat to the one, they were only fooling themselves. Rose reflected what was wrong with the first John Wick. All style, no substance. Insert witty segue here. Are you for real? Ruby? Rose? John Wick Chapter 2, however, has substance. Rare. Its story was actually decent. Rarer. And in fact, it was so well written, the rules of this underworld of assassins, it made me look forward to chapter 3. That's like blue rare. I never thought I'd be saying this, and I won't say it yet, but 3 years ago, who would imagine I'd be sitting here and saying that John Wick Chapter 2 is an improvement? Is it because my standards were so low with Chapter 1? Maybe. And listen, Chapter 2 is not going to blow anybody away with its layers or subtext, but it is, yes, believe it or not, and earn it. Poll question, who, in your opinion, is the biggest badass movie assassin? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to Real School, and of course, be sure to click that pesky little bell button beside the subscribe button so that you are notified whenever there is new Real School material. You can also follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link, and you can become a member of my Patreon team. But until next time, school's out.